Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Robin's Nest. Today, we're going to go down memory lane a little bit. We're going to talk some old school racing. I got in a conversation with someone this weekend, brought something up, made me think about it. I've kind of touched on it before on this channel, but I want to talk about it a little bit more in depth. So, if you enjoy listening to me ramble about motorsports, cars, or whatever I feel like talking about, make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, turn on notifications, share this video, tell your friends. As I've mentioned prior, we're in a copyright strike at the moment, which means that our reach does not exist. There is no reach. Our videos are not being recommended or anything like that. So if you would, tell your friends, share our stuff, any kind of help as far as that's concerned. It's greatly appreciated. If you're interested in diecast cars, t-shirts, hats, racing memorabilia, anything of that nature, or basically just anything at all, because we sell a little bit of everything, make sure to check out our eBay. The link is in the description. We have a like an 18 or 20% sale going on site-wide right now, so make sure to check that out. If you're interested in something, shoot me an offer. I'll accept it because I want to get rid of all this stuff. So without further ado, let's get into it. So I'm going to get into stuff that's some more modern day stuff here in a minute, some news or whatever. But first of all, I wanted to talk. I was on X and I was talking to Brock Beard, who has a YouTube channel. And I'm sure anyone who's watching this is familiar with his channel. If you're not, I'll put the link in the description so you can go check it out. He's got some pretty cool stuff, pretty cool info. But we were talking about the 2002 Sonoma race in NASCAR, and that is the one. If you're not familiar with it, Jerry Nadeau Jerry had been driving for Hendrick. I think 2000 was his first year with Hendrick. He was, I think he came into the Cup Series with Bill Elliott's team, the Dan Marino deal. I think in 1998. I think if I'm not mistaken, it was 98. And then he drove for Melling in the Cartoon Network car. And then he got hired on with Hendrick, and I believe it was 2000. And I think he won one race with Hendrick at Atlanta. He was always really fast. I believe it was Atlanta. He was always really fast there, and I think he almost won in 2001 as well. And he had a tire go down or ran out of fuel or something like that. The race that Kevin ended up getting his first win in, Jerry was up there. That was like a 6-car pack. Battle pack, I guess is what they call it nowadays. I hate that term, but there's like 6 cars that were racing with one another in that race in Atlanta, and then like one by one they started to fall off, and then it ended up being Kevin Harvick and Jeff Gordon, and we all know how that went. So halfway through 2002, Jerry was released from his contract with Hendrick in favor of Joe Nemechek. Now Jerry bounced around. He ran with Michael Waltrip in one race, I think maybe 2, in the 00 Aaron's Dream Machine. And then he finally got hired on to drive for Petty, and it was supposed to be a one-off deal at Sonoma. But like he showed up, and they qualified okay and kind of ran all right, didn't run great, and spun out at one point during the race, and that spin kind of set up pit strategy perfect for him, to where later in the race he would end up front. But he had to move Bill Elliott out of the way, which I thought was interesting to actually get the lead, because he restarted second towards the end. And Bill, considering he used to drive for Bill, and Bill gave him his break in the Cup Series, I thought it was interesting that he had to move him out of the way. But that spin, in hindsight, also is likely what caused what happened. I think coming to take, it may not have been coming to take the white, but it was coming like 2 laps ago. The rear gear broke on the car, and so he pulled off the track, and that was it. And he had a huge lead. Ricky Rhoda was in second. He wasn't going to catch him, and that was going to be a monumental win, not just for Jerry but for the Petty team, because the Petty team had struggled. They hadn't won a race since 1999 at Martinsville. They went through the whole deal with Adam, and they switched over to Dodge, and I heard Kyle Petty say at one point that they shouldn't have done that, that it was they, they weren't ready for that. And running 3 full-time teams and then undertaking something that big was not a, it wasn't good. That's what I'm trying to say. It wasn't good. And so Jerry spun out, and it probably burned up damaged the rear gear, and then we got down to the end of the race and ended up failing. And he lost the race. But Petty Enterprises basically gave Jerry that car for the rest of the season. And he had a couple good runs, and he ran like 12th at Charlotte, the Charlotte race that Jamie won. And then Martinsville, he got in a go-kart crash the week leading into Martinsville and broke some ribs, and that was it. He was out for the rest of the season. And they put different people in the car. Steve Grissom, who had a couple of good runs, a couple of top 10s. And they put Christian Fittipaldi in a race, and Christian did what Christian always did in NASCAR, which was wipe the car out. Not his fault, but that's what happened in basically every race that Christian ever ran in NASCAR, he wrecked out of. Basically. There was like 1 or 2 they didn't, but for the most part, all of them he did. And then they put Greg Biffle in the car for a couple of races, Rockingham and Homestead. And so what a lot of people don't remember, and I got in this conversation with Brock, but then got on a sidebar issue with some other people and started talking about some other things, but a lot of people don't remember the history of Petty Enterprises during that era. A lot of folks believe that Petty Enterprises stopped existing when they switched over to Legacy. That's obviously not the case. Petty Enterprises stopped existing after the 2008 season. Like, they completely closed the team down. So when Petty Enterprises merged with Yates, and I can't remember, Evernham, I believe there was another one. I may be wrong, but I know those 3 merged, and Petty Enterprises was gone after that. It existed in number only, the 43, and then they ran the 44 as well. But yeah, back in 2002, they were running 3 cars, the 43, 44, 45. They switched from running 2 cars to running 3 cars to try to, get better. And it's easier to get better running 2 cars than it is running 3 cars. And then they ran Christian in a limited capacity in 03 in the 44. But they fell off a cliff in performance from 2002 to 2003. They were, in context of Petty Enterprises, 2002 was a really good year for them, especially Kyle. Kyle finished, I think, 18th in points, which you're talking back in 2002. The Cup Series was really deep at that point, as opposed to what it is now. Now you get to a certain point in the field and there's pretty big drop-off in performance. It wasn't like that back then. Back then, it was deep. Every car basically had a full season sponsorship. People were lining up to put their names on race cars. NASCAR was a big thing in town. It was huge. And so 18th in points was really good, especially when you take into consideration that 2001, Kyle missed races. The races that he did make, they had engine failures, mechanical failures. 2001 was a dismal year for Petty Enterprises across the board. John Andretti had a couple of good runs in the 43, but the other 2 cars were so bad. So bad. Buckshot missed races in the 44. But, Buckshot I don't know if it was a sponsor deal or what it was for Buckshot to be put in that car. But that was just a disaster from the outset. I know Buckshot got on Dale Jr.'s podcast not super long ago, and he didn't really go into detail too much about why it happened or whatever. Just kind of, I got fired and all that kind of stuff. Well, yeah, you got fired because you were running terrible. Absolutely terrible. I'm not taking shots at the guy, but, it was not good. I think his best finish in that 44 was like a 16th at Atlanta, something like that. It just wasn't good. And so when they cut down to running 2 teams and running the 3rd car part-time, a lot of folks don't remember that Shane Mill actually drove the 43 because they'd released John Andretti from his contract, and they started running different people in the 43 throughout the 2003 season. I think they were trying to keep General Mills happy, because they'd gotten to a point where they weren't running very good. But it's like as soon as they let John go, then they went from not running good to running really, really bad and started missing races. Shane Mill drove the car, I believe it was at Daytona in July, and didn't qualify for the race. And he said in his interview that something happened with the transmission, that he lost a couple of gears when he come off pit road. I don't know if that's actually what happened, But both the 43 and the 44 missed the race that night. And Kyle, I remember him being interviewed about that, and he was hot, and he was throwing the engine department under the bus on national television. I think it was Mike Edgees who they were getting engines from at the time. And so, they brought 3 cars to Daytona, and only one of them made the show. That's pretty bad. And so, they finally hired Jeff Green to drive the 43. He ran it for a couple of seasons. Kyle kind of did his thing, and then they got rid of Jeff and they hired Bobby Labonte, and they ran better. They had some good runs, like a 5th at Bristol in 2006. And then Bobby ran really good at Atlanta in 2006. He probably had a car that was easily capable of running top 5, if not winning, but the motor let go. And then after the 2008 season, they closed up shop. Like I said, they merged. But anyways, the whole conversation with Brock, and then the sidebar stuff that I got on with other people just made me think of that whole story, and the fact that there's still people out there who don't know that Petty Enterprises has long since been gone, man. It has not been a couple of years ago thing. RPM and Petty Enterprises was not the same team. It was not the same team. RPM was Andrew Murstein's baby until Andrew sold his share in the team. Richard is minority owner. He's basically there in name only. And basically. So anyways, there's been more fallout from the Cody Ware crash at Chicago. Evidently his Hans device broke. There's footage that TNT showed, and I'll put the link in the description so you can see it, is on board of Cody looking back at him in his seat. And when he hits the wall, you can see him come forward like there's no Hans device restraining him. But you can also, it may just be me, but from my perspective looking at it, it looks like his belts weren't tight. I'm not exactly sure what was going on there, but regardless, when he hit the wall, he flung forward in the seat more than you should with all those restraints on. Steering wheel broke. It was a really nasty crash. He's very fortunate that he wasn't hurt. Very fortunate. Seriously hurt. It's the same kind of accident that Dale had when Dale was killed. I mean, he died because his lap belt wasn't intact, and so it very easily could have ended that way. Thank God it didn't. But I had another boy or guy tell me, because I brought up the restraints, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you don't want the restraints tight because it'll just absolutely shatter the person's body when they get in a." What? What are you talking about? They're restraints. Like, do you know what the purpose of a restraint is? It's to restrain you. It's not like it. I don't know. It's just such a dumb thing to say. I can't even wrap my mind around it. The restraints are there to keep you in the seat. Okay? If they are not tight, then when you hit something, you're going to come out of that seat and hit whatever's in front of you, the steering wheel, whatever. Okay? AJ Allmendinger in 2013, I believe, or maybe 2012, he ran the Indy 500 for Roger Penske, was leading the race, smoking everybody, was going to win the race. Then out of the blue, they pan over and they show him coming on pit road. For no reason, is not scheduled, nothing. They start playing the radio communication, and his belts had come loose. And he couldn't tighten them while he was going around the racetrack at speed, so he came down pit road to get the crew to help him tighten the belts. Because obviously you want belts to be tight. Now, if you're going to give up winning the Indy 500 for your belts to be tight, I mean, obviously Cody's should have been tight. Let's be clear, okay? It's not just an aesthetic thing. No, they are there to keep you restrained in that seat. That's it. Just point blank, that's what they're there for. But I also want to talk about something else that I got in a conversation with someone on, I don't know who, but someone online. But the way that these new Cup cars are built, I don't understand why we have gone backwards in safety, essentially. Because the reason I say that, if you look at, let's say this Gen 4, just for example, when you would run into something, that car had a lot of crash structure. The car gave, And that's what you want when you're in an accident. It's no different than being on the highway. When you run into something, you want your car to give. You know, you look at cars from the 50s, you run into something, there's very little give. You could hit a tree in a 1957 Chevrolet, and there's going to be very little damage in comparison to 2025 Toyota Camry running into a tree. And that's a good thing for the Camry, because the more that the car dissipates energy, it doesn't pass through the driver. The stronger the car is, well, the energy's got to go somewhere when you run into something. And it's going to find the weakest link in that vehicle. Okay? If the car doesn't absorb any of it, then it's going to find whatever's next. And then the next weakest link in that car is the occupant. Okay, what holds true for your street car applies for a race car. Okay, you want the car to give. You want it to come apart. You want it to distinguish. I've heard the same thing come out of guys at the NASCAR leadership's Mike Hilton's mouth 20 years ago. You want the car to give. But now we have cars that are so stiff that if you back one into the fence the right way, it'll end your career. I mean, look at Kurt Busch. He just spun and backed it into the wall at Pocono in an accident that looked like it was nothing. It should have been nothing. Career over. You know, I don't understand why we've gone backwards. You know, do they feel like because the cockpit of the car is so safe that we ain't got to worry about it? Is that what it is? I know, but what's going to end up happening is someone's going to end up getting really, really hurt in these cars because of that aspect of them. And then everyone's going to be like, well, I don't understand why that happened. The cars are safe, the cars are this, the cars are that, and blah, blah, blah. Well, maybe it's because the car's built like a damn tank, and when you run into something, nothing happens. Kevin Harvick said, I don't know, a year or two ago, he was driving one of those Gen 7 cars and he got hit in the back so hard that he thought that was it, race over. He's like, it was one of the hardest hits from the back of the car that he's ever had. And there was virtually no damage on the car. Kept going and finished the race. That's insane, man. That's insane. But you can just go ahead and put that on the checklist of everything else that's wrong with that Gen 7 car that will never be fixed, because NASCAR apparently has no interest in doing anything with that car to make it better. I can get on a soapbox about that. You know how I feel about that. It's annoying. It is absolutely annoying. I mean, just like, and I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer. This is just one of those videos because the past couple of events that I've watched has just been ridiculous. But Supercars and their Gen 3 car, it's another one. Last night, Brock Feeney was leading the race. Matt Payne was running second. Chaz Mostert was running third. Okay, Chaz had caught up with Matt, so they started racing each other for second. But as they were racing one another for second place, for position, they were still actively catching Brock Feeney. After Chaz finally cleared Matt, Bryce just checked out. Bryce Feeney. Meaning that those, a lap or two of Matt and Chaz battling with one another, that wore out the tires enough for Bryce to just check out. My point being is that the Gen 3 car in Supercars is entirely way too tire dependent. I don't know if it's actually the car that's just tire dependent or if it's just the construction of the tires. You know, I don't know which one it is. But Shane, when he left and he came over to the United States, I remember him being on one of Dale Jr.'s podcast episodes, and he said one of the main reasons he left to come to NASCAR was because he hated the Gen 3 supercar. He said the same thing I'm saying right now, is that it was too tire dependent. Is that the way you can't race for like the first, 75% of the race. Then at the end you can, if you have anything left, then you can start racing, but you have to save your tires basically an entire race until the very end. It's like I guess the best way I can describe it is it's basically like what people complain about with the Gen 7 is that there's not enough tire fall off. Well, it's the opposite for supercars. It's like one extreme and then one extreme. They're on opposite ends, but at the very fringe extremes of those ends. And no one has any, it seems like, I could be wrong, but it seems like no one has any interest in working their way back to the middle. You know? Shane was saying on some interview this week, I don't remember who it was that he was talking to, but he said that he's happy being an American running these cars because he was miserable in Australia driving the Gen 3. Or even, I'm assuming, before that, but the last version of the touring car before they did the Gen 3 had the same issue. Not to the extent that the Gen 3 does, mind you. But it did have an issue with tires as well. And so I don't know what they're doing in Australia with tire construction, tire manufacture, you know, whatever regulations they're imposing on the series. But it's absolutely ridiculous. You know, that we have really good racing for like a lap or two in supercars, and then it's like watching paint dry because everyone's too afraid to race one another because of tire fall off. And like I said, I have no problem with tire fall off, but just the fact that we're on the fringe. You know, we're on the very far end of tire fall off. Bleh, 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 if I can speak. I just want to see him get back to the middle a little bit. I just want to see good racing. That's all it is. You know, I hate to complain, but I just want to see good racing. I want to see safe racing. I don't want to see guys getting hurt, and I don't want to see, you know, I don't want to see guys being put in positions where they're going to get hurt. You know, that's just, it's not my thing, not my bag, man. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, thanks for watching. We took a couple of days off, spend some time with the family and do that. So we'll get back in the swing of things, making videos every day, I guess. They just had a massive crash at Mid-Ohio in one of the IMSA races, TCR. It was crazy. I don't know if they've uploaded it yet. I'll look and see if they did. I'll put it in the description so you can see it. But they had two TCRs got together in like the high-speed straight, come back around to the start-finish line. And got hooked and went off into the barrier and came back on the track and took out like 2 or 3 cars. It's crazy. Crazy accident. So I'm going to get back in there and watch that. And I'll make another video tomorrow to touch on all the racing stuff that's happened today and tonight. There's one more supercar event coming up tonight before the weekend's over for them. So anyways, if you enjoy listening to me ramble about motorsports, make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, turn on notifications. The works. If you're interested in diecast cars, t-shirts, hats, anything, basically. Check out our eBay. Link is in the description. Like I said before, if you see something you're interested in, shoot me an offer. I'm not going to say no because I want to get rid of all this crap. So make sure to do that. Check it out. And until next time, we'll see y'all. Take it easy. Peace.